There's a guy named Ryan Walters, dude pictured on screen here. He's the superintendent of Oklahoma schools, over all of Oklahoma schools. And he's been cramming the Bible down everybody's throats like it's nobody's business. It's ridiculous. He's instructed teachers to use the Bible as instructional material, like teach kids the Bible in the classroom. I don't know what class I get all classes is what he intended, like math class. I don't know. Like 7 Israelites attack, the Canaanites and 12 Canaanites die. How many people do you have? I don't know how you would use the Bible for math. Anyway, Hemant Mehta from the Friendly Atheist blog wrote an article about him. There are like some updates. So I want to give this a read, see what it says. This article came out August 22nd, 2024. Even Oklahoma Republicans are getting fed up with Ryan Walters. He's on the road to impeachment right now. By now, you're probably well aware of all the ways Oklahoma's superintendent of public instruction, Ryan Walters, is trying to inject Christian nationalism into public schools. This is the guy who wants to force teachers to make the Bible part of their curriculum, backed a taxpayer-funded Catholic charter school, which Oklahoma Supreme Court later decided is illegal, tried to put Christian chaplains in public schools, tried to mandate displays of the Ten Commandments in public schools, and more. There's more. I've covered him a lot, so if you're curious, just search Ryan Walters in my YouTube channel. He also approved the use of PragerU materials in classrooms, claimed the Tulsa race massacre had nothing to do with race, falsely insisted that President Joe Biden wants to destroy our Christian faith. God, I remember all of these videos. Yeah, he did say all of this. Formed a faith committee to examine prayer in public schools, appointed the troll who runs Libs of TikTok to a statewide library advisory. Oh my God, yeah, the advisory board. I remember that too. Holy Christ. And sent out a sample prayer for teachers to use for the people of Israel, and definitely not the innocent people living in Gaza. I didn't know about the sample prayer. Let me see. Yeah, apparently this is the document right here. Let's see. District administrators and teachers, Ryan Walters, State Superintendent, Public Instruction, October 11th, 2023. A moment of silence and prayer for Israel. Tomorrow, October 12th, all schools are encouraged to have a moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in any other silent activity to show our support for Israel. This is political. Why are they doing this in schools? What does this have to do with anything? All Oklahomans stand with Israel. Well, that's just factually wrong. And we stand against the vicious attacks. Israel has been a strong ally of the U.S., and we should support the members of the Jewish nation as they are being targeted by extremist Islamic terrorists. Sample prayer for those who pray. Let us offer a prayer for safety and peace for the people of Israel. We pray that violence against the Jewish nation would stop and that a time of healing occurs for those lost. We pray for our leaders to stand strong and defend any attacks against the Israeli people. So at this moment in time, October 7th is when the attack happened originally, and everybody was like really distraught and broken up about that. That's like really sad what happened to Israel, for real. And I'm so sorry for the people that were taken. It's, it's gutting. But by the time he released this, October 11th, October 12th, Israel had already effectively committed war crimes on Gaza. Gaza doesn't have control of their own power and water. Israel cut those things off. Israel walls Gaza into the world's largest open-air concentration camp. They can't leave. And what's more, I forget what numbers, like 50% or something are under 18. They're all very young. Israel is killing kids in Gaza. And this was happening when he sent this. You can stand for Israel. You can say they have a right to defend themselves. You can whatever. But you must acknowledge, seems to me, that there's some ugly happening right now, right? And in this letter, he's like supporting Israel against Islamic terrorists, like creating a black and white scenario. It's just sad, man. Just wrong. Anyway, he sent out a sample prayer for teachers to use for the people of Israel, and definitely not the innocent people living in Gaza. As he was doing everything in his power to destroy public education in his state, his Republican colleagues rarely had a word of criticism about his actions. They weren't about to criticize a self-appointed leader of the MAGA faithful in Ruby Red State. I don't think any Republican leaders, like congressmen or anything, have said a single negative word about him or what he's doing. Last week, more than 24 Republican state legislators sent a letter to House Speaker Charles McCall urging him to investigate Walters, a step which could potentially result in Walters' impeachment. That's a big deal. This is about 10 months after that prayer to, for Israel, October 7th and all that. To be clear, they're not going after his Christian nationalist antics. They are apparently fine with all that, but these allegations are no less important. Interesting. The letter from State Representative Mark McBride, chair of the House Subcommittee on Education, highlighted a number of specific concerns he had about Walters' behavior. One, Walters wouldn't allow a member of his committee or its Senate equivalent to witness executive sessions of the Board of Education. That violates state law, and it allegedly happened more than once. Disappointing. State Board of Education denies 3 lawmakers attendance in executive session. Interesting. Number 2, here's a second reason for impeachment. Walters refused to answer, or answered only with significant delays, the 2 Education Committee's inquiries, to the point where the legislature had to issue 2 subpoenas to force his responses. That played into the next issue. Number 3, Walters failed to follow orders regarding how public money could be spent when it came to school security. After the mass attack in Uvalde, Texas, Oklahoma lawmakers passed a bill giving schools $150 million for security enhancements. Wow. Okay, that's fantastic. Schools got $150 million. I didn't know that. That amounted to roughly $96,000 per year for 3 years for every district in the state. The understanding was that if districts didn't use the money in year 1, it would roll over into year 2, which some superintendents opted to do so they could make improvements that cost more money. But they soon discovered that Walters wouldn't give them access to unspent dollars from the previous year. Wow, that is really messed up. In other words, Walters was defying a law because he felt like it, then slow-playing responses to any questions about why he was doing it. This is actually straight out of the Project 2025 playbook. I have a collection of PowerPoint slides from their videos. Have confidence in your legal authority to act. Become a jailhouse lawyer. Know the law regarding your agency. Study the legal authorities of your position. Always check the law being referenced by a career federal employee, especially if you're being told you cannot do something. Always ask questions and get a second opinion. There's no substitute for knowing the law yourself. Have a lawyer on staff who's a political appointee. There are a number of others, but the bottom line with the Project 2025 instructions is act now, ask questions later. If you got to deal with a lawsuit or whatever, we'll deal with it when that time comes, but more than likely you're not going to have to. That's why Donald Trump keeps using music he's not entitled to use. Celine Dion, Foo Fighters, Tom Petty. I think he used Nickelback once. Keeps playing their songs at his rallies and stuff, and they keep suing him, but it never amounts to anything. Nobody ever gets anything. Trump never faces consequences, so he just keeps doing it. That's the same situation with Ryan Walters. He knows that he's basically untouchable. And if he is fired or impeached or whatever, he will have a slot on Fox News tomorrow. So he honestly doesn't seem to care what happens to his political career. He's going to be filthy rich and he's going to be a propagandist anyway. Number 4, here's a 4th reason why Walters might be impeached. Walters refused to hand over information about how he was spending taxpayer dollars for his office's travel budget. Reporters, McBride wrote, were getting more information about how Walters was spending his money than members of the legislature. KFOR News 4 also said that there were discrepancies between what they found through their investigation and the information eventually handed by Walters to McBride. Oh boy, that's not good. Again, the dude is untouchable and he knows it. You guys may remember, what's his name? Texas State Attorney General Ken Paxton. He is about as corrupt as they come. He took bribes and stuff. He got drunk as and walked out on the House floor and gave, some kind of a speech or whatever. Drunk as just gone. Slurring his words, tripping over himself, the whole 9 yards. And Republicans, the Republican legislature, filed articles of impeachment against him for all of the that he did. And he got Trump to endorse him and support him. And he weaponized MAGA supporters against the Republicans who voted for his impeachment. And they all capitulated. They backed off and said they voted against removing him from office after that point. Ryan Walters probably thinks he's going to be able to do the same thing if anybody tries to impeach him, and he might be right. Walters wouldn't fulfill open records requests in a timely manner. This is number 5, why he might be impeached. That violates state law, and Attorney General Gentner Drummond threatened Walters with civil and criminal action over it. Unless there's good reason for a delay, requests are supposed to be fulfilled within 30 days. One reporter informed Drummond that he was still waiting for information requested 10 months earlier, and that no explanation for the delay was ever provided. Number 6, sixth reason why he might be impeached. Walters refused to spend money that he was legally obligated to spend on asthma inhalers. Are you kidding me? In 2023, the state legislature passed a bill giving schools emergency albuterol inhalers and spacers so the inhalers could be used by multiple students, at a total cost of $250,000. Walters' office, however, never spent that money. The schools never received the inhalers. Lawmakers were stonewalled by Walters' office when they asked what the hell was going on, since the lack of equipment could literally put students in danger. That is insane, dude. You know, I've been doing a lot of research into World War II lately, and the kind of the political environment and eugenics and the religious landscape and everything, political landscape of the era. And I'm not saying anybody's like Hitler, okay? That's not where I'm going. But the political environment at the time was one in which Germans believed that if people were weak, if they were incapable of surviving certain extreme events, then they should just die, basically. And they put people through intense situations needlessly. Like if a soldier drops his clip during rifle training or whatever, he has to pick it up with his teeth. They send them out into the woods for 3 days with no food. But that doesn't help anything. That doesn't build endurance. They're suffering. They don't have enough. That makes things worse, actively worse, not better. And you know, at the time, the way this all started was eugenics is like this concept where you wanted to create an ultimate race of people, and that meant weeding out the bad. So the government at the time, their goal or their strategy of accomplishing this was, anytime a kid walks into a doctor's office, that doctor puts a plus sign or a minus sign on the kid's sheet, depending on whether the doctor thought that he was, quote-unquote, feeble-minded or weak in some way, deficient. If he puts a minus on it, then officials show up to the kid's house, tell the parents they're going to take him to, a summer camp, basically, where they're going to rehabilitate him and help him and teach him and so on, and he'll be back. And they just take him off to a concentration camp and gas him. That's how all this started. At the time, it was early on in the gassing process, so they were sticking people in vans and piping the exhaust into the van and locking it. That was their early strategy. And bizarrely, the doctors had quotas that they had to meet. They had to send 70 kids or whatever per month to these, to these chambers. And if there just weren't 70 kids that were deficient, then you pick the ones that aren't deficient, whatever it takes. That's the mindset that I'm seeing from Ryan Walters right now. Dude refused to buy inhalers for kids. Is he trying to weed out the weak ones? What's the goal here? I don't understand. Why would he do that? What is he using that money for? Is it just sitting there? Why is he not spending money that's literally being given to him to spend? The only thing that I can come up with is that he wants to weed out the defective people. What else could it possibly be? Anyway, I just don't know, man. Tell me what you think about this in the comments. Is this guy going to be impeached? What is his goal? Why is he doing these things? Is he just a colossal scumbag? Is he lazy and not doing his job? What is it? Anyway, tell me what you think. He won't spend the money due to the fact that it came from the federal government. Did it? I thought it was the state government. That could be, I suppose. It's like murder. Yeah, it is. It's like murder. Absolutely. Dude's refusing to get inhalers for kids. You know, statistically, how many kids are going to die? Not zero. What is it? 0.5%? How many kids are in the Oklahoma school system? 0.5% of kids die from not having an inhaler means somewhere around thousands maybe. Hell, if it's hundreds, if it's 50, if it's 10, that's too many. These are lives he could have saved. If it's 1, it's too many. Anyway, it's just wrong, man. I don't know what's going through this dude's head. Discussing how he's destroyed the school boards in his state also. He's destroyed everything for no reason. You know, like, I have this idea in my head of the ultimate Republican goals. Like, what if I had it on a sheet, what would they strive for? The most extreme things that they could possibly strive for. Government so small you can drown it in a bathtub, quote unquote, Grover Norquist. Zero taxes, zero for anybody. God, I don't know, like, what other things would they reach for? Christianity in all the schools, like, they're all religious programs now. That's not what Republicans are fighting for at this immediate moment, obviously. They probably would if they could, but that's the ultimate goal, seems to me, right? Where does Ryan Walters fit this into the ideology, this not giving kids inhalers when they need them? How does that, like, plug into Republican, conservative, extremist ideology? I don't know where else it could plug in if not, like, picking off the weak ones. You know, one of the main reasons that eugenics was abandoned is not because of bodily autonomy, not because people should be able to make choices for their own bodies, but because it's impractical. It doesn't work that way. Like, you can't just, like, send kids who have asthma to gas chambers. That doesn't help anything. You think, what, is asthma, like, hereditary to you? Is that what this is? You think that if you kill all the asthmatic kids, there won't be asthma in the world anymore? You think that if you take out, like, feeble-minded kids, there won't be feeble-minded people anymore? Like, what? That's not how any of this works. And the scientist who originally worked on eugenics, like, in the very, very early days, it was at Columbia University. I'm writing about this in my book, The Church in Chains, How Hitler Exploited Faith to Gain Control. So I have this whole section on eugenics, and the guy was a zoologist who really started heavily working on eugenics. Thomas Hunt Morgan was his name. He was at Columbia University in New York City, and he chose to study fruit flies. He had fruit flies with long wings and short wings, fruit flies with, like, black eyes and white eyes and red eyes, big ones and little ones, all kinds of different fruit flies. And he was using the Punnett squares, you know, dominant and recessive and everything, to try to predict what he would get out of mating certain fruit flies or whatever. And he came to find that eugenics does not work that way. It's just way too complicated. It's just, the concepts are way too complex to put down on such a, like, a simple black and white ideology or ideal like that. It doesn't get you anywhere, except for you're just killing people. You know, German soldiers were not any tougher than American soldiers because they had to pick up clips with their teeth. They weren't tougher because they had to wander in the woods for 3 days with no food. That's not how you build endurance. That's how you make somebody get sick and weaker. You don't eliminate asthma by killing all of the asthmatic kids. It's just not how it works. So anyway, I just don't know what else he could be reaching for here, truthfully. Tell me what you think in the comments. Before we listen, I just want to mention, got a voicemail from Tyler from Wisconsin. I don't know if that voicemail was intended to be played on air, so I'm not going to, but I don't get into my personal life really deeply, usually on air. Sometimes it kind of leaks through to some degree, and, you know, everybody's got some stressful going on in their lives. I've been clean for many years, and I've never really liked alcohol. It just hasn't really been my thing. But I don't know, like a month or a month and a half ago or something, for the first time in a while, like, I don't even remember. This has never happened to me to this degree. I got really fucked up. I don't, you know, I'm disappointed that I did that. I don't feel like I really relapsed or fell off a wagon or anything, because I wasn't, like, doing a drug that I was addicted to or anything. Not, like, mentally connected to, but generally it's like a bad thing to do that, especially having gone to school for substance abuse counseling and being clean for so long. It's just disappointing, but, you know, stressful gets to you sometimes. Anyway, Tyler from Wisconsin left a message, and again, like, I wanted to address it, but I didn't want to play it. He said that I need to read my arm. He said he kicked dope while listening to me, and that I'm an inspiration. Appreciate that, Tyler. That means more than you know, for real. That's the Anyway, yeah, you're 100% right. Just keep on keeping on. Do your best, don't worry about the rest, as they say, right? Anyway, yeah, I felt like I should at least give that a shout out, but I didn't want to, like, play it. All right. Yeah, Tyler deserved a shout out for that. I've been there. I've been trying to kick dope before too, and it was like unbearably painful. So, not even just physically, like when you're trying to get off of stuff like that, physically it sucks. It's terrible. It's like really bad, but mentally it just eats you up. The mental drain on you that it has is just completely out of control. It's so much. I'm lucky that I don't have to deal with dope sickness anymore like that. I mean, I still take Suboxone, but I don't have to worry about being sick from that. Anyway, it could be a lot worse for me. I could be like, I could be dealing with withdrawals. I'm not. So, anyway, glad I could help you with that. And glad you can help me with this. I figured Tyler deserved a shout out, right? Everyone's an individual. Some of us can do things here and there. Some of us never can again. Recognizing our limits is the important thing. 100% agree. Unfortunately, God, what was it? Substances. When I was in school, people used to say drugs are bad. They're terrible. They do all this terrible to you. They ruin your life and so on and so forth. And they show crazy pictures of meth heads with like sores all over the face and everything. Scare tactics, what it's called. Scare tactics don't work. Like statistically, we have the statistics. What was it? Just Say No, that Just Say No program that Nancy Reagan started. It's not that simple. You can't just like say no like that, obviously. But what do you do to all the people who already said yes? Anyway, people always talk about how bad drugs are, but they're not bad. That's the thing. They're good. They're too good. When you take them, you'll never be able to forget that feeling. It'll be in you forever, and you'll always want it from that moment forward. That's why I don't think that anybody should ever do any drugs, ever. You will try to attain that again for the rest of your life. That's how it works, called chasing the dragon. And it's not just a matter of ruining personal relationships or having money problems or whatever. Eminem was hooked on drugs. I talked about this recently too. Eminem has an unlimited amount of money. He can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. He could do, a pound of heroin a day if his body could handle it. But when he did do an unlimited number of drugs every day, he looked like this. He was a wreck. He wasn't eating. He wasn't paying attention to anything. He's falling asleep at random times. He's constantly fucked up. And now he looks like this. There's a very clear difference. So it's not just about ruining your personal relationships or ruining your life or draining your bank account of money or whatever. It's not just about that. It's like it ruins your life in so many other ways, chasing it, trying to attain that again. Drugs are too good for people to do. You should never, ever. Don't even put it in your head. Don't even try it because it'll never get out then. Anyway, thank you, Tyler from Wisconsin, for the voicemail.
Hey, Owen, what's up? My name is Alva. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Love what you do. You got an awesome thing you got going on. But I wanted to say I'm a recent atheist, and my parents are very Christian. They're not MAGA. They're not MAGA Christian. They're on the they're on the cooler they're on the cooler side of Christianity. So
That's a plus. Usually, if people aren't MAGA Christians, and they're a lot more moderate rather than like really, really deep into it, but not hateful.
Christianity. So I'm thankful for that. But I find it hard coming out to them that I am a recent atheist. I think it would break my mom's heart more than if I told her I was gay. I think I know my parents would fully accept me as being gay, and they would still accept me as being an atheist. But I think it would be more shocking if I told them I was an atheist. And they wouldn't shun me or kick me out of the family, but I think it definitely would break my mom's heart if I told her I was an atheist. So that's a good topic to ask other viewers how they feel about coming out to Christian families as an atheist. Thanks. Have a good one, man.
Yeah, I appreciate the voicemail. It's an interesting question. If anybody has any advice or ideas or whatever, put it in the comments. I can tell you that I don't talk to my mom, and I didn't talk to my dad for the last 10 years that he was alive. He died a couple years ago now, and my mom will go to the grave without me talking to her ever again. I don't have any family, like any, basically. I have a brother that I talk to like once a year, maybe, and I talk to my sister. To be fair, I talk to her reasonably often, but when I was kicked out of my house for not being the perfect religious kid that I was supposed to be. I still believed all of it. When I was kicked out when I was 18, I had nothing, and I had to live with a family who took me in. And this family, they effectively adopted me, took care of me, and I call this woman my grandmother. She basically is, for all intents and purposes. She died a couple years ago too, Sue did, but she was one of the most religious people that I've ever known. And she had a gay sister and gay family members, and she didn't hate anybody for anything, ever. She knew that I was an atheist. She knew that I was a YouTuber. She knew all this stuff, and I would still sit there and talk to her like everything was fine. Like she was a moderate Christian, not an extremist, and I've found that a lot of the time moderate Christians believe that if you are a good person, if you try to be a genuinely good person, God will see that and save you. That's kind of my interpretation of like what Jesus was trying to get at, I think. Although overall, I don't think that's what the Bible espouses. But either way, I appreciate that some people are like that. And you know what? Maybe your parents will feel that way. I mean, you know them best, so don't put yourself in like a dangerous situation or anything, obviously. But sometimes it works out reasonably well. Sometimes it does. So anybody who has any suggestions or ideas, put it in the comments. And thank you so much for the voicemail. Appreciate that. Also, I appreciate your other voicemail. I got that. But no need to play it. So you just believe in a different God. Your God is math and science. Yeah, I've heard that too. Whatever. Like my grandmother, she was ultra religious and also ultra accepting, but she still believed that the earth was only 6,000 years old, bizarrely, and that evolution was fake. It's like she was an evangelical without all of the hate. Is really weird. Maybe she's just an evangelical because of how she was raised, but that wasn't like hate wasn't in her, you know? Maybe that's what it was.